Hi guys, it's Raythe, and to celebrate the Halloween season, I have this crazy idea. The thing is that I love ghost stories, both real and made up, which I'm sure is not a surprise to those of you who have read some of the scarier stories on the site. There's a couple stories that are made specifically for the Halloween timeframe, like The Fall and Birthright, especially. Now, these are weird tales with romance in there, and it's always very dark and all this kind of stuff. But I thought that during the month of October, I would tell you guys some ghost stories, some real and some not. So, for this week's piece, I want to actually talk about my old house and some of the things that happened there. Now, I lived in Wilmette, Illinois oh my gosh, quite some time in this house that I loved. It wasn't terribly old. So, for those of you in Europe, you'll laugh, but it was about 70 years old. So, that's pretty old in American time frames. And it wasn't, built on an Indian burial ground or anything like that. But we had experiences there which are very difficult to explain. But because they're real, they're not exactly, how shall I say, well, they're weird. So let me just get into it. One of the things that first happened was I was friends with this boy, Seth, and he was just awesome. But his mother was from Ireland, and she actually had the sight, as they say. And we wanted to go to Great America, which is this theme park. And so my mom and his mom were going to take him and me. And so she came over to our house for the first time. And she literally went into the house and she left the house within 5 minutes. And she said, I will never go in there again. There's something wrong in there. And I was sort of shocked because my house was basically my safety spot. But everyone who had ever been there had said that it had strange energy. And I wanted to believe that, but I had never seen anything until we got a Ouija board. I know this is so stereotypical, but so we got a Ouija board. I got it for Christmas, and a good girlfriend and I were using it. And now you all know that for most times with the Ouija board, someone's pushing it, even if it's subconsciously. And that's all in good fun. I mean, it was Hasbro, I think, who made it. It wasn't like, something special. It was plastic and compressed cardboard. But anyway, so we were using it around Christmas. So we supposedly got this spirit. And it was interesting because unlike the other stuff we had asked, the answers were curt and it felt different. The actual, I don't know what you would call the piece that moves along the top of the board, but it was heavy. It wasn't easy to move. And it said that it wanted to visit. And so my friend and I very stupidly said, okay, fine. If you're real, we want to see you. When will you come? It said that it would come at 3 a.m., a time where, 13-year-olds are not going to be up, even around the Christmas break. Get me a little later in life, and I would be up then and past then because I'm a total night owl. But anyway, so I totally forgot about it. No big deal. A few days later, I noticed that there was a baseball bat by the back door. And my eldest brother, Mike, looked like he was just exhausted. And he and my mom were talking. And she said to him, did it happen again? And I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? And he said, yeah, it did. And that's when they told me what was going on. They claimed that at 3 a.m., someone had come to the back door and knocked. It was a figure all in black. They couldn't see its face, but it had woken my brother up and it freaked him out so much. And he's a big guy. He's a bear of a guy. He had taken the baseball bat down with him to confront this thing. Now, neither my mother nor my brother knew what my friend and I had gotten up to on the Ouija board. They had no idea about this thing that we had been talking to who said it would come at 3 a.m. Now, you would think that this would swear me off any sort of desire to use a Ouija board or to look for anything creepy, because, of course, this was actually terrifying. Something had actually come. Wasn't this proof? But the truth was, I always wanted more. I wanted to know more. I wanted to actually see. So here's another incident. Me and another girlfriend, we were playing Mario of all things. I think it was on the PlayStation 1, maybe PlayStation 2. And we were basically in this room where it was in the back of the house, and it had a wall of windows. It essentially faced out onto our backyard. And my backyard was really long. It was really deep and had two sections. There was the backyard, and then there was the way backyard, and they were separated by this group of bushes that my mother had. So it was probably like 70 feet back. Anyway, so it was night, it was summer, we were playing video games, drinking way too much Coke and having way too much sugar. And I don't know what exactly caused me to look outside. Now, everything was dark because we had turned off all the lights and just had the television screen on. And I was walking into the next room, and I glanced outside into the backyard. And there was this figure. And how could I see it in the darkness? Well, it glowed white. I don't mean like a little bit of glow. I mean almost like a cardboard cutout of white glow. And it was bulky. It almost looked like someone in a NASA spacesuit, to be perfectly honest with you. And I staggered to a stop as I'm staring at this thing, wondering if it's real. I mean, is it the television? No, it wasn't from the television. Am I just hallucinating this? Is it someone with a flashlight? Is it someone just, dressed in a white hoodie? No, it wasn't. So I called my friend. I asked her to come over, and I said, "Do you see?" And she just gasps. So I didn't even get to describe it to her. I said, "Tell me what you see." And she described the exact same thing, this figure in white that looks like it's in a NASA spacesuit, all white. And then, to our horror, it starts walking towards the windows. Now, the back door had a little freaking push lock. It did not, the same damn door where the figure in black had come to. Now we have this figure in white coming, and it was moving ponderously, again, as if it were in a spacesuit. And it got all the way up to the windows. And my friend and I were frozen in fear, in absolute terror. We couldn't move. We couldn't do anything. And yet I'm thinking in my mind, like, this is proof. You wanted proof that there's something more. You should go out there. Go out there. And yet, of course, I couldn't move at all. It was truly, truly pathetic. And then the figure turned and lumbered back out of sight. And this is where it gets really weird. You would assume after an experience like that my friend and I would be screaming, that we would be, running around, that we'd be calling people. But no. What ended up happening was we sort of just suddenly slumped, almost like all the tension drained out of us. And we just stood there for a moment longer, and then we continued on with our night as if nothing had happened. And later on, years later, we talked about it. And she, we would go tell ghost stories around the fire and all this kind of stuff. And we would tell the story, and no one understood why we had this reaction. Well, here's the thing. I don't know why, but it almost makes it more real to me that that's the reaction we had, because it's so inconceivable, and we both had it, but also because something like that happened to me again. Now we come to the third incident, which happened in broad daylight and in summer. It was in the middle of the day. The sun was out. And in a way, this is probably one of the most terrifying ones that happened to me, because there was no darkness. There was nothing that I could have misunderstood. I was in the middle of leaving my bedroom to go play tennis, of all things. Now, I'm not an athletic person, and I was terrible at tennis, but it was fun. Just so you understand the sort of how my house worked, my bedroom was on the second floor, as was my brother Michael's, but his was at the very top of the stairs over the garage, and mine was 3 steps up. So I left my room, and I was just heading down the 3 stairs to the landing where my brother's room was. And mind you, the day was beautiful. It was bright and sunny and warm, and it was probably about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And my brother's door was open. All his windows were open. You could hear birds chirping and all this kind of stuff. And that's when I heard the whispering. And it was coming out of my brother's room. It was like, I would say, a whole party of people talking to one another. And it was almost like a sibilant sound. Some of it would rise up in volume and some of it would rise low. And I froze on the stairs. I remember my hand clenching this crappy banister that we'd put in because people had nearly fallen on those 3 steps, if you could believe it, but it wasn't attached really well to the wall. And I was holding on to that, and I listened to this whispering, and it was growing louder. And I realized that in moments, I would be able to understand what they were saying. And I remember specifically thinking, this is it. This is the moment when you will get proof. All you need to do is listen to what they have to say. And yet, as soon as I said this, I started walking down the stairs and calmly walked all the way out of the house and went and played tennis. I did not stay. I did not look in the room. I did not wait to hear what the voices said. Again, this inconceivable moment for me of almost having proof and yet shying away from it. These were actions I didn't even consciously seem to make. It was almost as if I was compelled. But I kept having these, like I said, these 3 really scary yet inexplicable experiences in this house. And yet I love this house. So since then, I moved out and I moved into a new building. And I can actually say, thankfully, I've never seen anything here. And I don't want to, because I realize that where you want ghosts is somewhere where you don't live. So those are my 3 stories. I would love to hear some of yours in the comments. It is one of these things where I think almost all of us has at least one thing that's happened to us. It may not be ghosts, but it may just be something that we can't explain. And I think that it's a good thing for us to remember that the world is wide and we don't know everything. So thanks a lot, you guys. We'll be talking in a week. I'll have more real and some other ghost stories to tell you. Take care and enjoy the season.